was born. I went back there a couple of weeks ago to reminisce with my old friends, and I heard some real good country music and fell in love with a rodeo man. His eyes were bluer than a misty morning. I think I'm going back again. Would take me there, Bandera Highway, to the places where I grew, neath the mesquite trees and the warm summer breeze. You gotta savor all your childhood memories. Driving slow with the window down, by the river I could see the deja vu was knocking at my door. Something here remembers me, and I've been a long, long way from yesterday. So far away.
A new 501c3 organization that I'm so excited about, because it's about place, activating it, engaging it, and learning more about it. Place matters. In our daily lives, we have those special places. And for me, it's Barton Springs. Every morning, Monday through Friday, I swim there before I go to work. It relieves my stress, and it centers me. It's my spiritual home. There's places throughout our community that we share together. They unite and they divide us. And we have special memories of them, from the Women's March, but to also the Jim Crow era. They're a place of expression and a place of celebration. And millennials, I know you're really tired of us talking about you. But thank God you finally come of age, because your sheer numbers are shifting the way we're thinking about place. And you're demanding not only a place for yourself, but a place for community. You've certainly changed the office. Buildings are no longer high-end finish-out spaces. There's no dress code. And by God, you want to bring your dog to work. That's not the only thing changing. If I think about lobby buildings that are kind of the gateway into large office buildings, they're changing too. Gone are the high marble finishes. Welcome food halls, co-working spaces, and lounge areas that aren't just for the tenants, they're for the entire neighborhood. And we're seeing it in hotels. Higher end design in those rooms, outward-facing restaurants, and walk-up food windows. This is the highest grossing food and beverage operation of the JW Marriott's entire portfolio. And we're also seeing it in your choices of home. You want to live in the city, you want to live in the inner city. Once neglected, sometimes dangerous places, you've chosen because they're interesting and you've brought new life back to them. And you want to live where you can walk or scoot, get a drink, and not be afraid of going home. You've also changed public transportation, Lyft, Uber, and those dadgum frickin' scooters. And this industry hasn't changed in 50 years. But you turned it upside down and you've created chaos in place. By the year 2050, 11 billion people will live in cities. 90% of Americans will live in cities in 30 years. That has huge implications to our lives. And if we think about it, Austin, just in 30 years, we know the changes. In the upper left is Austin's skyline in 1990, and then on the other side in 2019. The same holds true for Seattle. Economically vibrant places change. There's good, there's bad, but they change. And if you think about it, places all over the world have changed. Vancouver, in the upper slide, and then Dubai. There was no there. No there in Dubai 30 years ago, and now it's the largest, densest city in the United Arab Emirates. Phenomenal change. You can only imagine their conversations. But what are the implications? We talk now about traffic and transportation. Can you imagine affordability and the crisis of the housing shortage, the separation of rich and poor, and the aspect of access to natural resources and the protection of them? But there are things happening in the world, and we're seeing great changes to place. You can now get a house printed in 24 hours for $3,000. Gyroscope transportation will be available at the World Cup in 2020. Wow. Urban forests in high-rise buildings, and new ways to imagine stormwater drainage and runoff. But if we look at downtown Austin, half of the land is the public realm. Streets, sidewalks, parks and open space, and the other half is the built environment. That's phenomenal. And if you think about place and how we can transform it, we've got great opportunity. We have to rethink how we design our cities. What if we built them around the public place? And we built them for people? It would really change how we interacted with one another and how we shared experiences. What if the streets had no lines? And we just allowed them to be managed by rush hour or midday? They look different in the evening or on Saturday.
No, ma'am.
Let's go back.
We can have some more shared experience. And then what about the voids in our cities where we're not using spaces? This is Box Park in London, and it was an underutilized freeway area, and they created shipping containers and created a whole retail complex for local retail that's affordable. How do we reimagine the places we live in? Density, it is not a bad word. It just means more people. And when you have more people, you can create cities with more intention and for people. And so, you know, when I think about being a city shaper, it's so hard to believe that 10 years ago we've had so much change. I can only imagine what's going to happen in 30. Thank you, because this next generation, you're the largest we've ever seen. And I believe you'll make places for all of us that matter.
My grandfather was a doctor, his father was a doctor, his brother was a doctor, his brother's kids are doctors, his brother's grandchildren are doctors. My grandfather really wanted me to be a doctor. I was 4 years old and he had this lab coat made for me. It's true. He really wanted me to be a doctor, but I had another plan. This is me at 14 years old playing my first gig with my first band at my friend Kayla Mitchell's birthday party. After that gig that night, I got the bug. I was hooked. I wanted to be a guy in a band for the rest of my life. And I put the blinders on, and for 30 plus years, I just traveled and played music. I've been in different bands. I've embarked on this thing to be a guy in a band. I've started bands, I've joined bands, I've played solo, I've had record deals, I've not had record deals, I've put records out myself, but I just wanted to be a guy in a band, to keep on making music and feeling like I had purpose. And I've been lucky enough to be a part of this musical community, and I've gotten a chance to play with a lot of really amazing musicians, some even in this room. And the thing that I love the most is the hang. One of the things I love the most, definitely, is the hang. Hanging out with musicians, getting to know them, learning about their journey, whether it's late night in a club or early, in the morning having coffee. In 2011, while walking the trail, which I do on a daily basis for exercise, I was listening to a lot of podcasts, and I found that there was a lot of comedians interviewing musicians, or interviewing comedians, but there were no musicians interviewing musicians. So I got the bug to start a podcast. I started one. It's called How Did I Get Here? I knew that I could do it because I had enough phone numbers in my phone book, or in my phone, to in my house, at least for a year. So I started off on this podcast. I had the equipment because I had a home recording studio, and so I just started inviting my friends over. They came over to my apartment. Just like that, people started coming, and I started to learn what it was that I was doing. It was a little hard at first, technically running the whole thing. It was a little hard at first knowing that conversations that you were having were going to be listened to by strangers, and they needed to be entertaining, and they also needed to get something out of it. So I learned as I went, and I figured if the music right now is viewed as content, and I found a way to humanize artists, then maybe the people listening to my podcast would then connect with those artists and be driven to listen to their music and not just view it as content. I chose my home studio because I have instruments everywhere. I have pianos. When people walk in and they see my place, the musicians, they know that I'm them, that I do exactly what they do, and the connection is there. It's easy to have a conversation because we do the same exact things. So, the shared experience makes for great conversations. So as the show grew, I started getting invited to do my podcast live at places like Austin City Limits Music Festival, at South by Southwest, at the Beats Music Festival, and many more. And I started getting bigger guests. People like the Bodines, Kathy Valentine from the Go-Go's, Dwight Twilley, some of the other people that are here tonight, and of course Rosie Flores, who's presenting here tonight as well. So also the show grew. As the show grew, I started to do my own live podcast, and I started to be reached out to by publicists, and the show naturally started getting its own kind of thing, and I started getting more guests, and I started getting a lot more comfortable doing what it was that I was trying to do. So anyway, I became more confident with every show I did, and all of these new things invited me to new opportunities that I wouldn't have had without it. In 2014, our good friend Ian McGilvray died, and he had been a guest on my podcast. And a few friends of mine had asked me to put the podcast out, and I felt weird about it, but I did. And when I did, I realized that what I was doing was bringing some kind of connection to people that loved someone or that cared about someone, to hear them in a natural state having a normal conversation. So that added a whole new level of purpose to my podcast thing, and it made me feel really, really, really good about being able to make people, bring people's stories to everyone. Anyway, other unexpected surprises. I made a lot of friends through the podcast. I've mended fences with people that I had falling outs with. There you go. But we made up on the show. Those things worked out. And so the show has brought me a lot of solace, and it's brought me closer to my community. It's kept me very busy, and I guess off the streets. Through the show, yeah. Sorry. I've done so many now that when I go out and see bands, usually at least one of the bands has been in my apartment spilling their guts at some point, right? So the show has become a rite of passage for some. Some feel like coming on it, like I've done the show now. So that's another thing that's been a really great thing for the show. And for the last 7.5 years, I've garnered an audience that is waiting to be introduced to new artists and to new music twice a week through How Did I Get Here. I'm still learning about life and music every time I sit down with one of these inspiring guests, and I'm always surprisingly fulfilled and always learn something about myself through the conversations. I still make records, I still make music, I still get out and play, but doing the podcast has totally reinvigorated my need to be a part of this community, and my need to be a guy in a band, and my need to be the guy who helps the people tell the stories. So I'm up to 800 episodes almost in a couple of weeks, and I want to thank all of the people that were able to, all the friendships, the community, and the people who were able to reinvigorate my sense of purpose. So I didn't end up being a doctor, but I did end up being a guy in a band.
Known about you. Every click, every swipe, every photo. It's 2019, and we're near the end of the decade where we've gone from being mostly mysterious to almost completely tracked. And what that means is starting to seep in. I'm a data artist, and I make work about the future of data about you. And before you just go, Laurie, I just want to hide, I will tell you, I think this whole conversation about data is going to turn upside down. I think data is going to end up being irresistible. I actually want my data. It all started with pieces about time, imagined time, smaller bits. Something changed. I actually ended up trying to measure my time. It's ridiculously hard. I Googled it. I actually found this guy. Ben Lipkowitz, who'd been measuring all of his time, minute by minute, for years. And I went, oh, it actually kind of looks like my stuff. I didn't hesitate. I scraped it, downloaded it all, steal like an artist. I started cutting, pasting, stacking. I really like this idea of being able to see yourself by the way you spent your time. And then I realized I could measure myself while I was sleeping. And I got a chance to see a bunch of my sleep data, and I was so surprised. I thought I was this A+ sleeper, and it turns out I'm like a C-. My sleep scores, they're awful. And, but it was kind of crushing. But it got my attention, and I really stuck with it. But I didn't want to be the only one, so I got one of these for my husband. And he goes, just you wait, okay, I'm a terrible sleeper. It turns out that he's an amazing sleeper. Most of the time. But he only remembers the bad. And I thought, that's so him. So I grabbed all the data, color-coded, I folded up the bad bits, it went in a show in Los Angeles, it got a ton of press, and the sleep company found me. Laurie, what can we do to help? Data. And I got a chance to see a lot of people's data. Each box is a month, the purple's the really good stuff, but the thing that's they're so different. They're like a fingerprint. They're like a portrait, like a data portrait. And I thought, oh, that's good. I'm on to something. And I decided to measure everything and use myself for research. I'd live in the future where all these gadgets are measuring you, and I would just really pay attention. I started to study patterns in the data, particularly the things that are like unnoticed, like a neural Fibonacci, those unconscious patterns of you, like a peek into your inner self. We go the same places, we like routine, we repeat ourselves. And I thought, how would these feel if they were large scale in the spaces that we live? Bumpy walls. Maybe in the future they're 3D printed or biofabricated, so I get new data and whoosh, wash it away and I just grow new. And after months living with these patterns in my studio, I thought, these feel familiar. They feel organic. They feel comfortable. They feel like me. And I thought, what if that's the whole point? I mean, seriously, what if that's the point? data is a way to see yourself with art. Because art makes data sticky. It gets you to look longer. You know, numbers are really abstract concepts, but we understand pattern intuitively. We feed on pattern. So maybe in the future, this is exactly what happens. It's your data, played back to you and abstracted, and becomes your art. You know, I look at all this data that's collected about us, and I just don't think it's about advertising. It's so personal. It's my identity. It's who I am. You know, we're so wrapped up in this notion that data is all about advertisers trying to target us. But what if we could use our data for something else entirely? To be able to see ourselves. To be able to see ourselves as art. You know, I look for spaces and look for chances to fill, right, spaces with data, and unconsciously people find it comforting, joyful. You know, it's like subterfuge. I fill spaces with data, and people like it. I actually think it pulls them in. This is what it looked like before we built this 500-foot underpass with Austin visitor data and the murals that they Instagram. The upholstery is by Sherry Bingham. The addresses are the locations of the murals that I color sampled. So if you walk down Lamar, it's very close.
Yay!
If you sit in traffic like a lot of us do, maybe you'll change your mind about data and start to imagine it as irresistible. So I say, take back your data. No, seriously, getting your data and owning your data is going to be a bigger deal than privacy. So take back your data. Take back your data and turn it into art.
So our story is a story about how sometimes life moves you in circles. Chris and I met exactly 14 years ago today, on my birthday. Right here at Elevation, which was a graphic design firm that he designed and that I worked at.
At the time, I was running an interiors firm. There were 9 of us. We were doing high-end residential, restaurants, bars, retail, etc.
All kinds of good work. But really, I feel like we were both getting a little bit burned out.
Absolutely. So I know I was getting burned out, and so we decided to take an adventure. So Grace helped me close down my studio. We sold most of our stuff. We rented this, or actually restored this '79 Volkswagen van. Cross country.
And it was a very Little Miss Sunshine experience. If you guys remember that movie, we worked on basically in every state. But we made our way across the country. We landed here in Texas, and we literally ran into the Hotel Santa Fe. Which is another story for another time, but we fell in Austin. But over the next 2 years, once we kind of made our destination to San Francisco, I stayed there. I was there for 2 years. I was working for a product design firm there, doing graphics and just enjoying everything that fair city has to offer.
And at the time, I was living in Providence, Rhode Island, when the Rhode Island School of Design getting my master's in industrial design. The following 2 years, I found myself at Syracuse University, where I started a new collaborative design program called Collab.
And I had made my way back down to Austin, and I was doing freelance graphic design work, and two-stepping and eating all the tacos. And, you know, in the meantime, we'd kind of broken up, and we were dating other people.
Witchy poo.
This whole time we had stayed really
So later that summer, I took a summer break and I convinced Grace to come and visit her in Austin, and as fate would have it, we got back together. And then we came full circle back to the San Jose in 2009. We were staying there Christmas Eve, And on Christmas Day, I proposed to her.
Totally unexpected. But I love him, I love the hotel San Jose.
So we got married. These are the invites that Grace did for our wedding. We got married at a little biker bar called Tanglewood Ordinary, where we had our second date.
And then Chris dragged me back up to the wintry depths of Syracuse for a year, which can best be described as one that I have erased from my memory. We then came back down to Austin and we started this firm together. With the idea that I would do graphic design and he would do interior design, and we would be more or less a one-stop shop for our clients. But initially it didn't work out as well as we thought. I was kind of in one corner doing graphic design and he was sort of in the other corner designing restaurants and offices and other things.
And it really showed in our website. Grace designed the website, and for us, we really wanted to show a breadth of all the things that we can do, but it backfired on us. Unbeknownst to us, it really, I think, confused clients. They didn't know how to engage with us. Like, what do you do?
Right, they would go to our website and they'd see packaging design and logos and all kinds of different things. But eventually, we started to collaborate on projects together. Taco Flats was one of the first ones where we not only helped them with their concept, but also with their brand identity, their architectural drawings, interiors drawings, signage, furniture design, the whole shebang. Even the neon signs in the background.
And then from there, we did a wine bar out in Cedar Park called the Rotten Bunch.
Oh, yeah.
Same order. Again, we did all the branding, the web development, designed the furniture and the lighting, and super nice.
And then we moved in together. So for all of this time, we had actually been in physically different locations. I had been working from home, and he was working out of a small office with a few employees doing interior. So it was kind of hard to collaborate when we were in different places.
And I feel like that really showed through when we started having client meetings in the space. We started to develop a new brick and mortar for Picnic, which was only a kiosk at the time. And then it led into brand development, which led into package design, which I don't know how many products she's got out now that are being sold all over the nation in Whole Foods.
And so we restarted our website to kind of reflect that and talk a little bit about how we did really cohesive spaces and holistic spaces, and that was what we were all about. It was more, we're an interiors design firm that offers kind of a holistic look. So we do graphic design and furniture design and lighting design as part of that. But one of the things that I think happened in the process is that we cast this wide net on our website. We almost kind of made it very vanilla and like palatable and like maybe a little bit too approachable. And we're not vanilla, that's the thing. And so it's something that I've sort of struggled with, like how do we describe the work that we do? And I ran across this article recently that was written in Style Weekly, which is sort of like Richmond's version of the Chronicle. It was written 13 years ago today, and it talks about Chris's work, and it says it's one that favors humor, often inexpensive materials, and a custom approach to actually showing and saturating your concept. And I thought, oh my God, that's it. That's what we're doing today.
So it takes us full circle. We're now an interior design firm, 9 people, doing high-end residential, retail, restaurants, and we get to do really cool, fun projects, and we get to live in Austin, which is the city that we love.
Right, so sometimes you just get blown around by a tornado and you go in circles and you go across the country and you try different things with your business and you realize that what you wanted was right there in your backyard.
So I grew up in London, England, and studied dance at this place, Centre, and then needed to go find myself. So I hitched around Europe, slept on beaches, met lots of other European artists, musicians, dancers, philosophers, and we'd stay up all night sleeping on the beach, playing music, making dances, talking about life, and it was really, really enriching. And then we drink wine, smoke, and you know, it fed a lot of my need to find out what I wanted to do as a dancer or as a person who was interested in movement and theatre. And I was also really interested in human rights and in the environment. And I came to America, and I went to the former Yugoslavia, to the rape camps there, and collected medicines and medical supplies, and went to Mumbai, China, all over, for the UN conferences on human rights and performed there. And this piece is inside the heart, and the Gulf War broke out, the first Gulf War, and like many people I was mortified. And this piece took place in four movements. It had a banquet table full of toxic waste, 36 people in black bags, 36 oil drums all along the Great Walkway, and a lot of people came to it, and we released dubs, we had live music. And this piece, at that time, body count, a lot of our friends were dying from AIDS, dancers, opera singers, friends of mine, and body count went on for 8 years. We did it at the state capitol, Barton Springs, and eventually I started going from the social political into the transformative, and this piece was at the Norwood Estate in an abandoned swimming pool, and that was a piece I did with Jose Bustamante and with dancers in nets, and that was really my first experience of dancing off the ground in these nets. And then this is the old Intel building, and I'm sure a lot of you know it. I loved this building, and when they blew it up, they called and asked me what I thought about that, and I said I was in mourning. But that was the first big site work where we were 80 feet off the ground, and dancers were in the air, and really, really playing with architecture and with the space and the environment. And this is on the federal building. No, this is on the Intel building still. That's right. It was a phenomenal experience to really be outside, to really feel the vastness of nature and the sky and the environment, and to see dancers' bodies flying through this universal space. It was phenomenal. And I got hooked. And this is the Beatific Angel. So each of the works have a story and a concept. And I'm very interested in our connection to the environment, to nature, to the human journey. And all of these works have a storyline that threads through. And I find the music, I listen to the architecture of the space. I collaborate with phenomenal dancers and athletes and choreographers and riggers. And there's always this dialogue and conversation that happens about the work. I don't think anyone can claim it. They're really, for me, prayers for the planet. I feel like if we create beauty, and in whatever we do, and we do it with intention, and we collaborate with a synergy of energy, there's nothing more powerful to me than that in creating work. And these are all over different sites in Austin. This was over Town Lake. This was one of the hardest pieces we ever did. Bungee jumping over Town Lake. It was in honor of the water. And the riggers design and create the possibility to make the equipment to support the dancers. This was our latest piece, was at the Seahole Power Plant. And the dancers flew around there and came out of the window. I think there's another image. And this was about refugees and the environment. And you know, I was hearing from my friends in Europe what was going on in Syria, and the closing of borders, the people dying in the water, and the destruction of our environment. And I was moved. We have projections on the building of animals becoming extinct, nature and war, and the suffering that war creates. This was in Pittsburgh. That is a genuine shot. And there she is, one of the dancers. On white side, this is the artistic.
Where's their phone?
You'll see an image there, and it's haunting. I cannot separate what goes on in our global world. I'm from another part of the world. My mother was from India and Iraq, and I cannot separate culturally the divisiveness that's happening. I just think, as for me, my passion as an artist is to, give the message in a way that we can absorb it, and it's beautiful, but it's poignant, and that's my vision.
Was a medical resident at the American University of Beirut, Paris in the Middle East. One evening, he noticed a young, beautiful woman in the waiting room. Her emotions peaked as she flirted with my father, and she waited for her journalist sister to give birth to my cousin Elizabeth. Nabil and Meredith's romance set a rare, beautiful bar, but their parents raised concerns a marriage would be a poor cultural fit. To dodge the drama, they eloped in Nevada. They chose each other. Within a year of returning to Lebanon, I was born. Seems my most Australian trait is reading upside down. When war broke out in 75, we made plans to emigrate. Over 1 million left, hundreds of thousands would die. One night before our departure, my father delivered a baby. Nuns at the hospital determined she was the wrong religion and pressed to make an example of my father and risked our plans to leave. Saner minds prevail. Freedoms aren't universal. In 1977, young Saudi Princess Michelle and her lover were executed for adultery. The Saudi government, when a British filmmaker made the death of a princess about the affairs, the Saudi government offered $11 million to prevent its broadcast, and Mobil Oil joined in, placing an opposition ad in the New York Times. Thankfully, PBS aired it anyways. At 10, I heard Joan Baez sing Peter Gabriel's song, Biko. The song recounts the life and murder of South African anti-apartheid activist Stephen Biko. Biko was beaten to death, his body left on the wall in the shackle tube, his pen name, Frank Talk. His writing did not publish until after his death. The people that get us stories and news in our interest are my heroes. Auntie Bara Alameddine was the first journalist I met. She spent her career producing news, authoring books, and interviewing world leaders. She was traveling with Indira Gandhi soon before her subject was assassinated. Part of my identity is tethered to Bara's example. I grew up in the fringe of the Finger Lakes, very cold, and I learned to express myself at school. It felt good to write, paint, and draw. I dreamed of being an illustrator or journalist. I wasn't sure. When Dad suffered a fatal heart attack racing to a delivery, I rejected an offer to study design at Syracuse and contemplated medicine. A month later, when millions collected in Tiananmen Square and across China to rally for freedom, I realized communication was my passion. The Chinese government soon mobilized 300,000 troops, declared martial law, and slaughtered thousands. If reporters on the ground with cell phones hadn't shared the tragedy, we might not know. Finding storytelling jobs that covered my rent after graduation was difficult. Tired of working 3 to 4 jobs a week, I accepted a job at the iconic Mechanics and Agency. While attracted to ad storytelling, when the Graduate School of Public Communications at Fordham offered me a full ride, I quit on the spot. Dr. Everett Parker was my mentor and hero. In 1963, Martin Luther King told him a Mississippi TV station refused to let African Americans on air. Dr. Parker fought like the devil against the free speech attack, insisting broadcast airways are of public trust and subject to universal access requirements. The courts agreed. Failing to adhere, the station's license was revoked. My thesis attempted to explore what may happen when attempts to stifle free speech on the internet occurred. It concentrated on China and Saudi Arabia. I downloaded sources that might disappear. Pro tip, I lug this along with me on a date to Paris. Catchy. My then boyfriend, a fellow media obsessive, is now my husband. I soon got a role as scriptwriting for 2 shows, Views from the Pews and Access White Plains. My next boss, Columbia professor Ali Noam, taught me about media, economics, law, and policy, and flew me around the Statue of Liberty. But tracking the U.S.'s decline as a free press leader was depressing. Diversity is critical to freedom. Shortly before 9/11, I moved to Austin and joined tech companies to learn about digital communications. One of them was Capital Factory, founder Josh Baer's first startup. It's fun to look back at baby-face photos like this and remember our first fights to foster a free and open internet before its abuse. I now lead a PR agency and treasure public interest work. When Ecuadorian dictator Rafael Correa silenced a dissenting newspaper, he began to broadcast himself each night instead. Leo Burnett, Mexico, publicly displaced journalists and Ecuadorian people communicate themselves online in the leader's likeness through satirical music videos that went viral. Korea is no longer in power. When Pope Francis visited the U.S., media legend and mentor Kathleen Hesser recruited us to promote his Good is Winning message. Her solution was brilliant. Instead of divisive words, teens operated a Pope emoji command center that gave people the ability to insert the Pope into their everyday lives. The campaign connected different generations, broke records, and warmed hearts. Je suis Charlie. Murders like those at the French satirical paper Charlie Hebdo in Charlottesville are haunting reminders of what happens when freedom of speech and hate collide. And the rising murder of journalists and photographers and lack of protections is shameful. Isn't the murder of speech the murder of what makes us all human? Austin bombing victim Draylen Mason was a young, talented musician. His story captured public interest. After the bomber's capture, the police decided against publicly releasing a video that he left behind. The video detailed how the bomber made the devices, not why. Chief Manley decided sharing it was not in the public interest. Those are really hard calls. In March 2018, I attended KUT's Rebecca McElroy's Views and Brews interview with Pulitzer Prize-winning author and writer Lawrence Wright and Washington Post Global Opinions editor Jamal Khashoggi. The events led to Jamal's self-exile from his home and freedom of the press to center stage. 6 months later, my heart sunk when I heard Jamal walked into the Saudi consulate in Turkey and vanished. Since then, evidence of his murder is mounted alongside strong suspicion. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman ordered his killing. Bin Salman told an aide he would use a bullet on Khashoggi if Jamal did not end criticism. Bin Salman denies involvement.
Right. Before I left, I was banned from writing, banned from tweeting, by an order from Mohammed bin Salman.
That was Jamal at KUT. His colleagues David Ignatius and Karen Attia continue to seek justice for Jamal and remain relentless in their reporting. This week, they took home a special Polk Award for their work. Media in the public interest is vital. Je suis Charlie and je suis Jamal.
Just get started with that. I'm Joe Patoski. I moved to Austin in 1973 with the idea of becoming a writer. And all these years later, I've seen a lot of things happen in Austin, so I decided to write a book. Have you ever wondered, how did this cool place that you live in right now get to be so cool? Well, I tell you all about it here in 360 pages. It all started, really goes way back to the beginning of Austin, but it really started this modern era, the last half century of alternative becoming mainstream with the hippies in Austin. But even hippies in the 60s, you know, you couldn't be aspirational here, you had to leave. So even talented hippies with aspirations, they left to San Francisco, like Janis Joplin and all that. That out-migration changed with music in the early 70s, starting with this guy, Willie Nelson, when he played at the Armadillo World Headquarters and brought together the hippies and the rednecks and kind of started a whole new counterculture here in Austin, Texas. That counterculture that started then is still playing out today. And Armadillo wasn't just a concert hall, it was like a community center. And this guy here, Jim Franklin, was pretty much the counterculture's first designer. He came up with the idea of the armadillo as a symbol of Texas counterculture. Soft and loving on the inside, but a hard shell on the outside. Because this is Texas, baby. Here's Kenneth Franklin, who really started this in the 60s when he ran a beer joint up on North Lamar. It bears his name now, the restaurant of the same name. He really nurtured, mentored Janis Joplin and people like that. But in the 70s, he was bringing hippies and rednecks together. To hear him yodel like Jimmy Rogers, 1920s singer. Completely weird. But it wasn't just musicians. It was music people. And here's the great communicator of Austin. You're about a block away from Margaret Mosier Plaza. Here's another person who really was a scene maker and built the scene and the culture. And she's getting her left breast autographed by the great text message accordionist Plugging Menace. Music is part of our culture. It's kind of one of the bases. And you can't talk technology, you can't talk film or food without music. And here's one of our latest examples, playing for 75,000 of his close personal friends at a local festival called Austin City Limits.
Yeah.
Here we go. You know, it's just not music, it's food too. Here's a guy that followed a bunch of music people from Lubbock, because he missed his music friends as much as they missed him. So C.B. Stubblefield moved to Austin and set up kind of a barbecue business. He had a struggle, but the place you know is Stubbs, the music venue and the restaurant, that's him. And then this guy here, he came to Austin for all the wrong reasons. He thought he was going to get a job at Coke FM playing progressive country music, and he couldn't. It was full up with all these deadbeats who didn't want to leave Austin. So instead he took a job as producer of this television show called Austin City Limits, which is now the longest running television music series on television. Here is still a producer today. What started here? The world's largest organic grocer started 10th and Lamar right here at this little store. And these ideas that have become Austin today all started in a place like this. People made stuff up out of nothing. And that's what Austin's all about. Is people doing stuff because it's cool. Pete Turner dancing with someone during South by Southwest in front of the Continental Club. And there's Diane Scott, the world's greatest singer. Look, you can't invent this stuff, and that's why people are coming, and they won't stop coming. They're still coming. Rick Linklater and Lee Daniel met each other at a Super 8 camera buff club here in Austin and discovered they both love movies. So what are we going to do? Well, let's watch more movies. So they come from the Austin Film Society. They give away $2 million worth of grants to independent filmmakers. Started by two guys that just wanted to go watch more movies. And then here's another guy after Rick Linklater did Slacker. Robert Rodriguez did a $7,000 film, El Mariachi. And has gone on to vertically integrate the whole film industry. And he owns it all. And that's his sister, Patricia Bond. We're in Austin. You can't do film without music. That's all there is to it. And of course, technology. We're in the Google building, really important. Austin, as a technological center, is based and rooted in play. And here's your guy. Yes, this is up with Michael Dell. This is up with Lord Richard Gary, who has fun and does gaming and uses profits to go to the moon. Or go into outer space. Of course, Aaron Franklin came to Austin, not to become the king of barbecue. He came to play in bands. Come on, this is Austin. And he stuck around and learned how to barbecue pretty well. And he's still the same old guy. And that's what makes Austin Austin. But folks, this is what makes Austin Austin. I don't care. You work 80 hours work week, you're a type A, you're in the wrong place, baby. You've got to take a break from the nice day outside and hard springs right down the road. No other city in the world has a natural swimming hole within a mile of their typical business. Nowhere. And here's the two architects of South Congress, Liz Lambert, who defines Austin style with the Hotel San Jose, and Steve Wertheimer of the Continental Club. And really, they're the people that make South Congress cool. But of course, there's a tradition of being weird here. Well, back in the 70s, Carl Hickerson ran for city council numerous times on a pro-marijuana ticket. I thought that was pretty nuts. But he also inspired the bumper sticker, "I'm crazy too, Carl." Flower salesman and acrobat, he's outside of Esther's Follies. He's an Austin treasure. As is this guy, who started giving away his cassettes in front of the McDonald's he worked on at the drag. And then pretty soon when people started discovering, he started selling them. Daniel Johnson's music has been performed around the world. His art has been shown in the Whitney and in Paris, and it started at McDonald's on the drag. People make stuff up out of nothing here. And here is the reason people ask me, well, Austin, is it over with? Is it still cool? If you just arrived here today and you're going up Southland Park, and you're driving down and you're looking at these bars and restaurants and condos, and all of a sudden, bang, It's all this. And in good context, it's honky tonk. You did this great, Austin.
My main focus is the emotion. When I look at my work, I need the viewer to wonder what is going on. I need the viewer to create his own story, to feel any kind of emotion, but to feel something. For me, art is about feelings. What do I feel when I look at it or listen to it? The medium used do not matter. I have a quality and control obsession in my work. And I always like to challenge myself with different rules in everyday life. I do the same with work, and I like to push myself with different challenges. Video, stills, digital, film, etc. It doesn't matter what I choose, because my vision is the same, and my main subject remains the people. The challenge on this project was to do the exact opposite of my instinct. To let my control, quality, obsession go. So I call this first project the blur of my life. I had to let go, to not have any power over the subject, to give the subject freedom of movement in the environment of their choice. I forced myself to not give any direction, to let them be, just walking around them like a fly on a wall. Instead of capturing a sharp motion, I wanted the viewer to feel the motion in their movement, trying to capture the entire movement from point A to point B. To achieve this, I had to drastically change my camera setting by slowing down my shutter speed. Because I am usually a control freak when it comes to lighting, I had to deal with natural light. I couldn't add or modify any lighting situation. I shot mostly during the late evening in low light, so I had to boost the sensitivity of my camera sensor so the images ended up very grainy. In this series, depending on the strength of the motion capture, the face could end up completely abstract, which would give the subject complete anonymity. Yeah. Can you tell that on this photo it's stinky friendly?
Hell yeah!
Of the images, the motion completely deformed the subject. I haven't incorporated text in my work before, so I decided to frame this series with its own name, The Blur of My Life. But you can only read the text if you put the print in front of the mirror and read the reflection. Now I would like to introduce you to my latest personal project that I started 2 years ago, and I still have a few more to go. This time I decided to challenge myself with the book of 100 portraits. Why? I don't know. But what I do know is that I'm very thankful for all the people I met during my 5 years here in Austin. I met so many characters, each from their own different universe. I want this project to tell a story, to tell my story. I didn't speak English when I came to this town. I studied classical for 20 years in France, and I just bought my first camera. I want this project to be about all the people that have helped me, guided me, and crossed my life in many different ways here in Austin. For this final project, I let my quality obsession and my control obsession lead the way. I only gave the subject one rule: come as you are. So they were choosing the appearance. Besides that, I would control everything else, which means I would shoot indoor with my studio light. I would direct the subject and create each background. I would make sure to capture two things in camera: my lighting and the facial expression of my subject, because I don't retouch my subject in post. I would always spend time on my lighting. Photography is writing with light. The sensor or film I light sensitive. The photograph is a result of it. So lighting is what matters the most. And lighting is also what creates the mood. So I need to ask myself, what kind of mood do I want to create? Do I want a dramatic lighting or a very dramatic lighting? During the shoot, I do everything I can to make them feel comfortable. I want them to have fun, so I guide them until I find the best angle or best expression, until something magical pops through my lens. You could ask me why no one is smiling on all of these photos. I decided to have no one smiling because I like candid smiles. But for me, the best way to capture a candid smile is when people have no idea that someone is taking their photo. When people sit down in front of the camera, they change their behavior. Not smiling is also for me a way to amplify the thinking of the viewer. Like I said first, I want people to wonder what is going on in their mind. As you can see on this photo, I create each background. Once I have selected my winner shot, I open the photo in Photoshop, and then the long creative process can begin. I never know in advance what I'm going to do. I always follow my instinct. I ask myself, what can I do to bring this photo to life? I just stare at the photo for hours before an idea comes to my mind. When I see the intense expression, my only concern is, what can I do to sell this photo? What can I do to make it shine? How can I emphasize some details of each character? Designing each background is the longest process. It can take days. Even months later, I can start over until I know in my guess that it is the perfect combination, the texture of color, until I think, wow, and then I know it's done. I hope you could understand me well enough to get
go that well, so from there we got into film. We've loved cinema since we were kids, and we started off making VHS movies in our backyard, usually emulating 80s movies that we were into at the time, which were horror and action films. This is one we did. We like to do stunts and effects, and we got our parents. This, for some reason, was about two men fighting over the love of a lawnmower.
We continued making films through college, and we saved up our money. And our first feature right after David graduated from the University of Texas was an absurdist comedy called Plastic Utopia. It was shot here in Austin in '97 on 16mm. It was not successful, but it was an incredible learning experience. It took us a few years before we were able to make another film. In 2000, we made a film called Frontier, which was another absurdist comedy. It's about explorers from the fictional Eastern European country of Bulgaria, and it was shot entirely in the fictional language of Bulgarian. Wiley Wiggins with it. This is where two characters were engaged in ritualistic boxing matches and chicken carcasses. Frontier actually premiered at South by Southwest in 2001, and while it was not at all financially successful, it was made cheap and it was very satisfying for us creatively, and we still like it to this day.
And after making two features that didn't really go anywhere, we went back to making shorts for a while, and just kind of honing our skills and finding our voice, and we just started cranking out several films a year that way. And this included Foxy, The Way of the World, Flotsam Jetsam, which is a short that starts off as this esoteric black and white art film. And then ends in a documentary making of the art film that has a shark attack in it. We filmed at the Gulf of Mexico, and I think it was the craziest, most fun short we ever did, partly because it involved a real shark.
We've done a few music videos. We've frequently collaborated with this awesome band and dear friends of ours, the Octopus Project. Several scores for our films, so we keep working with them. This was for a music video we did for them called Truck. And based on the success of these shorts, someone actually commissioned us to do a web series with anything we wanted to do. They actually paid us. So we created this thing called Fiddlesticks, which was about a gibbon that had godlike powers. You may can tell we really like working with animals, particularly because if you cast them just right and let them do their own thing, they're the best actors.
This is our most successful short. It's called Sasquatch Birth Journal 2, and it chronicles the birthing process of a Sasquatch. That's never been documented on
And finally, in 2008, we felt confident enough to make another feature. We called together a tiny budget and called in a lot of favors to make this film called Goliath. It was with a very small crew. It was shot on nights and weekends, again here in Austin. Goliath is about a man who suddenly loses his cat in the wake of a bit of a divorce. The cat was sort of his last relic of their crumbling marriage and his way of holding on to the past. So when it goes missing and his world unravels, you know, the tone of this film and the others that followed it are a mix of both comedy and pathos, and it's this fine line between the two that we really start to explore and really like.
And then the next film after that is in 2012, and it's called Kid Thing. And it was just a fable about a little girl in East Texas who's a juvenile delinquent, kind of living on her own, mostly unsupervised. We'd seen plenty of coming-of-age stories about little boys that are juvenile delinquents, but we hadn't seen many about little girls. And so this story in particular was interesting to us for that reason, and we filmed it in a lot of the same places that we played when we were kids. It premiered at Sundance.
And every film we've made has either directly or indirectly helped us get the next one going, both with the success of Goliath and Kid Thing. It gave us the opportunity to do something on a bigger scale. And this movie was called Kamiko the Treasure Hunter. It premiered at the Sundance Film Festival in 2014. And it's based on this urban legend that circulated online about a young Japanese woman who becomes convinced that the Coen Brothers movie Fargo was a real true story. She went searching for the suitcase of money that Steve Buscemi's character buried in the snow. We were able to film half of it in Tokyo in Japanese and the other half in Minnesota in English. And it was nominated for some Spirit Awards and Independent Spirit Awards, and it helped really open some more doors for us going forward.
Cool. And then our most recent film is called Damsel. We shot it in Oregon and Utah a couple of years ago, and it came out last year. It's an 1800s Western starring Robert Pattinson and Mia Wasikowska, and we put ourselves in it as well. It's the story of a man who is traveling west to rescue the love of his life, who's been kidnapped. And what starts off as a normal, straightforward hero rescuing the damsel story ends up becoming much more complicated, and the lines between hero and villain and damsel become increasingly blurred. We love Westerns. It's one of our favorite genres, but instead of being bound to cliches inherent in that genre, we wanted to kind of subvert them and make them more complex. So that's what we did with Damsel. And also, rather than being historically accurate with the period, we chose instead of focusing on the idea of the mythic West, which is why you have rocky coastline mixed with desert, mixed with aspen forest, all from sea to sea. It's not based on any historical accuracy at all.
Growing up, I had quite a propensity for cute boys, guitars, rock and roll, and candy. At age 5, I even wrote my first song on a toy piano called Candy, Yummy for my tummy, Candy, Yummy for my tummy. If you eat too much, you'll get a great big tummy ache. I joined in the early 80s a band living in LA called the Female Cowpunk Screamin' Sirens. It was the most fun I ever had. We played for fun, and that's all that mattered. We didn't need much in those days to live in that world of punk rock, and being young and free was a life. We found these dirty laundry cans when we were on tour. These machines were fixed filled with socks and shirts and underwear. We got excited by the fact that you could spin the candy around with a little handle on its side. There was even a front loader, and we were inspired to keep looking for more cool stuff, like maybe they had matching dryers. I started my first band at age 16 in San Diego, California, from the bubblegum guitars of my teenage years to Penelope's children. I learned to deal with the slug suckers and worms and dirt like the promoter in '68 who tried to take back the $80 we were paid to open for Creedence Clearwater and the Turtles. The musicians had our back, and they taught us that we had to actually watch out for the snake charmers and the vampires who were going to take us for a ride, and boy was he right. Over the next few years I learned a lot, and I had a really good time doing it. And here I am in the middle with my brother's silver-toed guitar talent show, moving right along. Performing has kept me pretty grounded. It's kept me moving through all the insecurities and self-doubt that the industry can bring on. It's a scary world out here. So to relax, to keep from being shy, I've had a few vices, like smoking cigarettes and drinking tequila and having junk food, and who doesn't love pizza, hot dogs, and hamburgers? My taste avoidance since then, I still have fries and burger for dinner, like at P. Terry's the other night. You know what they say about junk food junkies? Once a junkie, food junkie, always a brain drain, broken bones, hangovers, and sleep deprivation. Well, some things never change, but the show must go on. Travel wasn't always fun, from missing plane flights to getting speeding tickets, broken bones in London from slipping in the rain on a cobblestone gutter and landing on a pile of dog shit. Adding insult to injury. Always so tough to keep the van smelling like a rose with a bunch of guys. Once we stopped by the Grand Tetons, the guys jumped in the creek, fully clothed, to swim away the funk and to have their time of their lives. And to end the cleansing ritual, we tied their wet things to the luggage rack on the roof of the Windstar, and the sunshine and the wind blew our troubles away. So through the years of being snake charmed and shit on, I still have to be strong and run from the demons of insecurity that haunted me. What brought it into perspective was this dream I had one night living in Echo Park. It was a day or two before the dream. I was clearing out the leaves, and this big, ugly bug came across me, and it was the ugliest bug I ever seen, and I screamed, "What are you?" This alien, giant, prehistoric ant. Ew, it was rearing its ugly head. And I sprayed it with the garden hose, and it washed away into the gutter and out of my life forever, or so I thought. The next day I had this dream, and it wasn't a bug, it was a big, giant alien pod. "What the hell are you?" I shoved it hard, and it rolled down the hill, gaining momentum, and collided with a white VW bug. And upon impact, the doors flew up, and bam! That's when I realized that I can push all the scary things out of my life, and then the doors will start opening. And that's exactly what happened when I moved back here to Austin, Texas. I found amazing musicians. I recorded a new album that's actually doing really great right now. I'm getting it Waterloo Records. But early on here, I moved to Austin, and Margaret Mosher put me in the Hall of Fame, and I won a Peabody Award, and recently got into the Texas Songwriters Legendary Hall of Fame. Down the corner, and I've been able to teach guitar to youngsters who want to learn how to rock and help women take the lead. I started playing guitar when I was 15 because I needed to back myself singing. And I found 2 other female classmates who liked to harmonize, and I had an instant all-girl group. It was a popular thing at the time. Groups like the Shirelles and the Ronettes. I saw female singers on American Bandstand. And after school, I caught the rockin' pneumonia and the boogie-woogie flu. So the rockabilly scene throughout U.S. and Europe has given me a lot of support. When it started in L.A. pre-post Sirens, I jumped in with both feet and my guitar and made it to my life's passion to help Wanda Jackson and Janice Martin, who were early rockabilly pioneers, to get what they deserved. Chicks and dudes, man, it's such a man's world out there, right? Come on, you guys, you know that, but I think it's a great time for women, or chicks, both in music and politics. I believe that it's going to get better for us girls, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's a female president in the next decade. Run! Thank first meal. We got the keto diet, the paleo, the vegan, or you can just try juicing. I've tried everything on the planet, not to lose weight, but to have energy. But I don't always find the time, so all I got is eating a good breakfast. The first meal of the day can set me off to rock the night away. The games people play, when you don't really mean what you say, but not the kind of games I play. I had the chance to be Lady Luck once. I was with my boyfriend winning in Las Vegas. He won $1,000 and he got extra points that night when he told me I brought him all the luck he ever needed. And the sirens, we made up the kissing contest so we could have an excuse to kiss. Cute boys, they all won. I eventually left the sirens for my solo career. Also, it's been the right home for me. I started the Blue Moon Jazz Quartet here in town. I have the Rosie Flores Review every Friday night at Seaboys. I can play my guitar. I can paint. I'm going to finish writing this book called Wacky Truck Stop Candy. I'm not a millionaire, but these days I feel like I'm sitting on a pot of gold. Yeah.